from, and you cannot help but just be infected by Milena's exciting personality. So I know she'll capture your attention, and we're really excited to share this series with you. So just a little reminder of who we are. So this is put on by Women in Data. So we are a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to increase diversity in data careers. And so we do this through providing awareness, education, and advancement to women in the tech industry, and specifically into those new and fun emerging industries such as machine learning, artificial intelligence, data science. And one of the things that I know, being a former hustler, I will say myself, is people who get in this field are really A-type personalities and very driven, which has made them very successful. But I think, we'll learn a lot today of just some of the benefits of pulling that back a little bit and creating the better work-life balance. So we're excited to provide, a series of information where you're not only learning about the technical skills, but really understanding, how do you better shape your whole life and career so that you can actually thrive in this environment and continue to succeed. So based on thriving in this environment, one of the things we know very well at Women in Data is we need a community to thrive. And so we're really excited to have such a strong community. We have a little bit over 10,000 members. We are now in 27 chapters across the globe. And we've had over 100 plus events. We could probably almost put as many webinars now due to the COVID times. But we're happy that, whether we can connect in person or we can connect online, there's a group and a community here who's here to support us all along the way. So as mentioned, tonight's speaker is Milena Regos. I had the opportunity to connect with her on Instagram. I would encourage you all to follow her at Unhustle. Everything, I think I almost liked all her posts once I saw it because, she just provides such guidance in a world that we know so well, which is a go, go, go. Having been, a lead executive and an ex-marketer, she's worked with some of the top brands and some of the top companies. And so it's really, I think you'll all really love hearing her story of how she's, made a career transition, but also how now she's helping others really start to find balance in their life. So without further ado, Milena, we are excited to have you and welcome.
Thank you so much, Sadie, and thank you so much, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedules. I know how busy we are, and so this means a lot to me. And so without further ado, I'm just going to jump and start sharing my presentation, if that's okay with everybody. We just got to figure out some logistics here, but if you give me access, I'll be able to share my screen. There you go. So hopefully, how is everybody's energy today? I can't see you. I hate presenting in in virtual settings because I feed off of audience. Oh yay, that's great. Now if I can figure out how to minimize this. There you go. Okay. Welcome everybody to this new way of living I call Unhustle, and I'm super excited to share it with you and tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do and how I thrive on helping people, because I am one of you. Let's just get this straight. Type A, overachiever. I'm the founder of Unhustle for a reason, because I experienced this hustle culture. So what are we gonna talk about today? I did kind of go a little crazy with the slides, hoping to keep you guys' attention, but hopefully it will be interactive. Sadie, you'll keep me on track if somebody has questions along the way. If not, we'll get to questions at the end. So a couple of things I want to talk to you today about why this hustle culture, this productivity, including during a pandemic, is such a wrong thing to do. We're going to talk about the top 4 hustle culture myths, and we're going to bust them one by one. And then I'll give you the counterintuitive but scientifically proven cure, which is the Art of Unhustle, with some practical tips you can implement to start going in your day. So what is Unhustle? Since I came up with this term, I want to explain it to you. It's basically a revolutionary approach to the way we live and work, and in that order. And to put it simply, Gary Vaynerchuk says hustle culture is the most important word ever, and I disagree with that. And I say human is the most important word ever. And I know Gary has gone back on all this hustle preaching. I actually just watched an interview with him saying, I can't believe people are coining me for the hustle king, but we all know that he is. And for those of us who are in technology, we're familiar with who Gary Vaynerchuk is. So right off the bat, I want to give you here a free PDF to how to claim 2 hours in your day. These are some simple strategies that you can do while you're working from home to claim back some hours in your day. And if you want to grab that PDF, you can find it at bit.ly/free 2 hours now. And it's just a free PDF to get you going in the right direction of claiming back time. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from Bulgaria. This is where the accent's from. It's actually mixed with a little bit of Australian because I'm married to an Aussie. I live in Lake Tahoe, but this is me to the right, learning to ski in Bulgaria. I thought it was a pretty funny photo. I think my mom made our clothes, and my parents were amazing. And I actually had the most amazing childhood, even growing up in communism, because they introduced me to nature and skiing and the outdoors. And they really, really believed in education, which brought me to the United States to pursue an MBA and chase the American dream. And I did that for about 20 years. I started as a marketer. I worked for a ski resort, again, coming back to my childhood roots, living in Lake Tahoe. And then eventually I started my digital marketing agency, which did really, really well. And we were crushing it. We had amazing clients. This is at the opening of Madonna's Hard Candy Fitness Club in Toronto. I work with UFC. I worked with 1-800-Flowers. I mean, we had a good handful of clients that were worldwide, and I was miserable. Here's a photo with Mr. Brainwash at the opening. And I realized that all that money and all that influence and all that success, even though it was great, I was working 18-hour days. I would come home, make dinner, and sit back on my computer. I was definitely living and breathing this hustle culture, and I did not have an off switch. So of course, what happened, as we all know, is even though you may achieve success based on money and based on perhaps pushing your company forward or growing your business, it's simply not sustainable. And yes, you can do it to a point, and yes, you can do it while you're younger. But in all my research now, it shows that even people in their 30s, even people in their 20s realize that all that work, all that putting your work before your worth is really not realistic. It's not healthy. It's not sustainable. So what happened to me is I came close to burning out. I was just pretty miserable. My health was suffering. My marriage wasn't that great. And I burned out. So when I realized that, I connected back with I wanted to connect back with my values, with my priorities, with who I am, with joy, with what I love to do every day. And so we planned a 10-day digital detox trip to Baja California, sir. It turned out to be digital detox only because there was no internet where we went. We went to this small fishing village and there was nothing to do. So you take an overachiever, a type A, addicted to social media, and you put her in this small fishing village with nothing to do. I thought I was gonna die. So instead of dying, I decided to learn how to kite surf or kiteboard, which is pretty close to dying experience that I can imagine. And I was floating in the ocean, connected to this kite, trying not to kill myself. And I realized that I was in a flow. I was in a state of flow. And all of a sudden, the light bulb went on. And all of a sudden, I started thinking, what if I can have more moments like this, state of flow in my life, in my everyday life? What if I start measuring my success by joy and happiness and health? What if I don't follow my parents' footsteps who died really young, and I build a life that I'm proud to live? So we decided to change our life. My husband and I, we don't have any kids, but we decided to change our life. And we started living between Baja and Lake Tahoe. We started spending 4 months down in Baja. We lived in an Airstream. We really simplified things. We went on this whole journey of simplifying life, of getting rid of everything that didn't bring us joy. I wouldn't call us minimalist, but we went through a lot of stuff and we simplified. And basically, this Unhustle journey is based on this whole journey. And without going any further into Unhustle, let's get into what's happening in our country right now. So I say in America, we're fat, sick, and tired because that's what the research says. I went on this journey to research everything I could about work culture, about why we work so much, about what's going on with this performative productivity. And this is what I found. 50% of us won't take a vacation or don't take a vacation. Now, this is before COVID numbers, right? So it's a little hard right now. But 50% of us, we have vacation, but we don't take it. We choose to work instead of taking time off. 46% of us are lonely, even though social media is making us more connected. And again, these numbers are going to be a lot higher right now. So there's a loneliness pandemic in America that's happening. And 63% of us are stressed out. Again, that's going to be higher right now. So these numbers just paint a grim picture as to what's happening in the United States. 1 in 5 has a mental health problem. And 2/3 of us are burnout. 2/3 of us are burned out as we are right now. So something is not right. And 42% of us are obese. So what's not right is this death by overwork. And this is why I became so passionate about trying to start this revolution, this new way of living and working, because I'm trying to save souls, because I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen with me. I've seen it happen with many other people. And I went on this quest, right? I've read every book that is out there. I still have a lot of books to read. And I'm not alone in this journey. This is Jason Fried, the founder of Basecamp, who has a great book on how Basecamp works. And basically, Jason says sustained exhaustion is not a badge of honor; it's a mark of stupidity. And so let's go through some of the slides I want to show you on these myths. The productivity myth: if you work more, you're going to produce more. So where does it all come from? It comes from a very, very outdated model. This 8 hours labor, 8 hours recreation, 8 hours rest came back in 1817. Now, it wasn't until Henry Ford created the 40-hour work week that it became a law. But even Henry Ford created the 40-hour work week because he wanted to increase productivity. So he actually cut down the hours from 12 or 16 hours to 8. The reason he did it is because he had a factory which was working shift, and he realized that people could go into the factory and work 3 8-hour shifts, make more money, be happy, have more leisure time, and actually have more money to purchase his car. So he was a very smart guy. Unfortunately, this was like in the 1800s. It's 2020 now, and we're still using such an outdated model with all of the technology that we have. Now, there have been a ton of studies that show, and who are we kidding? Who's working 40 hours, right? We're working 50, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. We're going backwards. We're going way back to the factories, except that we're not wearing great clothes, and we're working from home. So we're ripe for a work revolution. We're ripe for a school revolution because a lot of this actually comes from our school, from society, from our parents, from what we believe is the way to get successful, is all this hard work, long work. We've been told this since we were kids. However, Stanford University did a study. It shows that people working 70 hours a week do not produce more than people working 50 hours a week. The consultants at the Boston Consulting Group did a 4-year-long study with their consultants, highly paid consultants. What did they find out? That when consultants took time off, they were more productive. And then recession hit. And the people at the Boston Consulting Group said, wait a minute, maybe we should put a pause on this study. And they said, no, let's keep going. And so they found out that even during a recession, when the highly paid consultants took 1 day off a week, they were able to produce better results, they were more creative, and their clients were happier. I like this number 15 because this is back in 1930. An economist by the name of John Keynes predicted that by 100 years from now, so we have 10 years to get our act together. I'm starting on this journey now because 10 years from now, we should be working 15 hours a week, thanks to technology. Thanks to technology, the one thing, and you guys would understand this, ladies, the one thing that sucks so much of our time is technology. I think the technology is great. How we use it, perhaps not so much. So there's another study here, 2 hours and 53 minutes is basically what a study of 2,000 employees found is what people actually work when they go to the office. Everything else is distractions. It's busy work. 2 hours and 53 minutes, 3 hours, very similar to the previous slide. 3 hours times 5 days is 15 hours. Now, I am not here propagating that you should work 3 hours a day, but I am here trying to tell you that working anything, even 8 hours a day is probably too much. And in our information age, our brain cannot process. You're not being as focused, as productive. So with 70% of us working from home, or 100 million people, now is a really good opportunity to reassess how you work and how you live and figure out where can you save time from working and where can you work smarter instead of longer. So what's the solution to that is obviously deep work, or this state of flow, which Cal Newport, if you're familiar with him, calls it the superpower of the 21st century. And if you want more superpowers, I also have this other PDF at unhustle.com, which is the 7 superpowers of high-performing unhustlers. And I think you'll really like it. Every one of them has a follow-up podcast interview. And it's anything from how to slow down with Cal Honoré, the godfather of the slow movement, to how to manage your stress better. So there's some great actionable tips. There's a case study in there with Kat Karoy, who built a thriving business working from home by taking naps and working 4 days a week. So what happens if you work less? I want to give you here 3 stories. With Andrew Barnes, with Perpetual Guardian, who is also now the leader of the 4-Day Workweek global campaign. Stefan Arstall from Tower Paddleboards, who put his entire company on a 5-hour workday. And Microsoft, who just did a 4-day workweek trial in Japan. So let's see what happened. Perpetual Guardian, stress went down from 45% before the trial to 38% afterwards. Work-life balance rose from 54% to 78%, and team engagement and empowerment rose from 68% to 86%. This is by going to a 4-day work week, same pay. Now, if you're working alone, if you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, this is a company that showed the world that doing it on a company level is completely doable. On top of that, they're in a very kind of old-fashioned industry. They deal with a lot of paperwork, and they also deal with a lot of customers. So Perpetual Guardian launched this trial. It showed very successful, and now they're spearheading this whole movement to make countries adopt a whole new law, basically, for companies and to inspire them and empower them to go on a 4-day work week. I am not a big proponent of the 4-day work week personally, because I feel like if you take time away from working for 3 days, I think it's very healthy every once in a while, but I also think like you lose momentum. And so I like to work a little bit and keep that momentum going, because we bog down in communication. So if you become the bottleneck of that communication, then it's a problem for everybody else. So Tower Paddleboards took that approach, and they just, instead of going on a 4-day work week, they said, we'll just work 5 hours a day. So they put all of their staff on the 5-hour workday, 40% increase in revenues, and the fastest growing private company 2 years in a row. Now, to be fair, there's some disadvantages to the 5-hour work day that they found out. And they found out that some people really like company culture and like to hang out in the office and hang out with their buds and have that social life of working. So now they do a normal work day during the winter time, and then they go to a 5-hour work day during the season, which is their busiest time. Microsoft did the experiment in Japan just recently in 2019. And Japan is known for a country who they even have a term for death by overwork, karoshi, which turns out Americans work longer than Japanese. We just, our work is, our term I would define as hustle culture. So when Microsoft did the experiment in Japan, over a month, it turns out that they had a 40% increase in productivity, and their staff was a lot happier. So we work more, but we don't really produce more. And there is the productivity myth of hustle culture. We get bogged down with busy work. And we measure our output based on hours instead of based on output. And so that's a really big trap, especially from a management perspective. But even if you're working for yourself, if you're measuring yourself based on how many hours you put in the office, then that's the wrong measure. You need to change the measure. You need to shift your perspective and start measure based on output instead of based on hours that you put in. So let's talk about the money myth with hustle culture, and that's the more you work, the more you make. It might be true for a while. The more you work, the more you make. It's probably not sustainable. But here's what they say, that productivity has increased while hourly compensation not so much. So this shows that productivity increased by 70-80%, compensation only increased by 11%. So we work, but somebody else is getting richer. Maybe the head of the company is getting richer, or maybe it's the stockholders, somebody is getting richer, but it's not us. Now, if you work for yourself, 100% different situation. Just keep in mind that putting all these hours in, again, is not sustainable. And then when you get burned out, what is that worth to you? And how much are you going to pay to fix your health? Which I see happen a lot with my clients. I saw it happen with me. I was just on the phone with Brian Kramer, another really big leader in the marketing world, who the exact same thing happened to him. He burned out. He was exhausted. So not sustainable. And he pivoted his career, and he does something very similar to what I do. He coaches people on how to have more joy, have more purpose in their lives. So we work more, but we don't make more. That's that money myth with hustle culture. In terms of the success myth, that's a very personal measure. And I highly encourage you to get very clear on what your values and what your priorities are. Because when I got clear on this, you start measuring your life based on what's important to you instead of falling for comparisons as to what other people believe in, what you see on social media, what the neighbor is doing. So success is the whole word is a tricky one. I think we need to replace it with how happy you are instead of how successful you are. So let's talk a little bit about the happiness myth. This is our first retreat with Unhustle in Lake Tahoe, and these people came and they gave up their funds for 4 days. It was a voluntary digital detox retreat, and they did not want to take them at the end because they were able to connect so much with themselves. They were able to connect with other people, and they just did not want to get back to their phones at the end. So one of the longest study on happiness, over 75 years long, it's still going on. You can watch it. It's a TED Talk by Robert Waldinger. Basically, they went on to find out what makes people happy. And it turns out it's not work and it's not money, but rather relationships, connection. It's exactly the same thing we're missing right now. Now, in terms of the happiest countries in the world, the 5 happiest countries, the ones I'm talking about, Northern Europe, they work 100 hours less than the average OECD, which is 1,744 hours, where in America we work 1,780 hours. So we're one of the most developed countries in the world, yet our happiness factor is way lower than other countries. And that is a problem. So we work more, but we're not happy. We work more, we buy more, we consume more, but that doesn't bring that inner joy. You don't have time for relationships, and you're just more stressed out when you're making more money, as all the other research that I'm reading shows. So Sweden has implemented a 6-hour work week across the whole country, and is running with it and measuring the happiness of their citizens. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with The 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. She was a nurse who worked with people, helped people in their final stages of their lives, and basically wrote the book of The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And none of them has, I wish I worked more. Actually, it's, I wish they had the courage to live a more authentic life, not the life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends, and I wish that I had let myself be happier. None of the people who are on their deathbed are like, I wish I had sent the email. I wish I had finished that project. So I know it's tough to talk about it that way, but it's the reality of the situation. If you are, and it's a good exercise, if you write your eulogy, what would you include in there? Would it be your work accolade, or would it be that you're a mother, a daughter, a friend? So it's a good exercise to do if you're really looking into connecting more with your values and what makes you happy at the end of the day. Now, here's a silver lining in this COVID pandemic. 64% of people during this pandemic are actually enjoying downtime at home because they have a little bit more time to spend with the people they love. They have a little bit more time to get into hobbies. They get a little bit more time to finally cook, or maybe just do nothing. Even in this pandemic, I see a lot of this hustle culture, like learn a language and paint your house and fix your garage. And then all of a sudden you're going, well, I haven't done any of this, so maybe I'm a failure. And it's such I think we need to allow ourselves to just be easy on ourselves and give ourselves grace and space to just be with ourselves, just take a little bit more time for reflection and for taking care of ourselves and for self-care, and not be so hard on ourselves when we're not always crushing it. Remember, this comes from an A-type overachiever, slightly converted into the unhustle mentality. So here are your hustle culture myths, hopefully busted for you. It's really tough to shift your perspective along in this ingrained by so many years and societal expectations, norms, but I think at least starting to think about it this way would be a great first step. So of course, I think the solution for this is Unhustle, which basically comes down to working less, earning more, and living fully. I want to make it very clear that by working less, I'm not expecting to make less money, but even if I was, if that gave me more joy, more time to do what I want to do, then I'm perfectly okay with this. However, from what I've seen, by working less, you're actually able to get into more of a state of flow and able to do your deep work, which actually pushes your business forward. And at the same time, when you give yourself the time and space to go out in nature, to hike, to meditate, you come up with better ideas, you come up with a lot more clarity, and you come up with a lot more, you get more in touch with your intuition, so you can actually make business decisions much faster than sitting in front of the computer trying to figure it out. So the framework that I came up with for the Art of Unhustle is, I came up with all these U words, but basically unlearn is the mindset, is just what we just talked about. Unthinking is having the courage to actually say, I'm not happy with what I'm doing. Maybe I need to change my job, or maybe I need to look at how I'm doing things, or maybe I need to give up this project, or maybe I need to say no to something that I've been saying yes to for so long. And then there's a component of uncomplicatedness, which comes with a lot of technology, a lot of companies, a lot of even ourselves. We bring so much on our own lives. We basically cause ourselves all this stress and overwhelm because we are not good at simplifying things. The unbusyness is connecting with what gives you joy. It's what Sadie does when she goes and paints. It's finding the time to do the things that make you happy. The well-being component is how you take care of yourself and how you find time to disconnect from your technology so you can reconnect with yourself. I'm not talking about digital detox all the way, but I am talking about having a mindful relationship with your technology. So there's a lot of mindfulness components. My training is, I'm a mindfulness-based stress reduction training during my human potential coaching program. So it was a completely transformational experience for me. So there's a lot of mindfulness components in my philosophy, a lot of mindfulness and stress reduction. And there's also a lot of biohacking components because the program was led by Dave Asprey. And so my philosophy is a little bit of old school and new school. And the final step in the Art of Unhustle is how to unleash your human potential. And that basically means how to connect with your purpose, how to create a high flow life and work, and how to tap into a high performance state, which if you're overworked, tired, exhausted, and overwhelmed, there's no way you're getting into a high performance state. So to give you some practical tips, and then we'll open it for questions, I just wrote down some that I hopefully would make sense to you that you can do right now. So minimizing social media. Why? Because whether we intentionally do it or not, we start getting into our egos, we start getting into our comparisons. So when I say minimize social media, see if you can do it for as little time as possible. Now, my business is on social media, so I have to be on social media, and I love what Sadie posts all the time. But I have to, I give myself probably 10 minutes to check in and get out, because it's a big time suck for one. It just adds to a cluttered mind, it adds to distraction. So that's one recommendation that I have for you today. From a leadership perspective, I don't know your positions, but if you're showing that you're always available and expecting that of your employees, I would suggest that it starts from the top. It starts with you, and it starts with how you lead. And don't respond to emails and messages at 10 o'clock at night or at 4 o'clock in the morning for the insomniacs or the people who get up really, really early. So lead by example and see if that changes your team. Obviously, the basic things in terms of self-care, like the sleeping more, we're definitely sleep deprived. And it's the first thing to go when you get overwhelmed, and it's the first thing to go when you have more projects. So making sure you get enough sleep, enough exercise, that you're eating well. Now that we're working from home, it's a good opportunity not to buy junk. meditation, highly recommended. Some kind of meditation, mindfulness practice, spending time doing something fun, playing, and actually giving yourself time to get bored. We all know that some of the best creations came up when people were bored. In terms of work-life boundaries, taking back your nights, weekends, and if you can, vacations. I know vacations are hard right now, but at least see if you can take back your nights and your weekends. Learn to say no. Big one, big one. The most successful people in the world are the ones that say no to most things. I like to start my day with 3 priorities each day. I write them in my journal, 3 priorities for the day, no more. Everything else is bonus. Keeping it simple, but keeping it very focused to what's the most important thing that I can get done. See if you can cut some hours from what you're currently working, even if you cut your hours by 30%. Now, if you can get into a state of flow, studies show that there was a study done by McKinsey, a 10-year-old study that showed that executives who can get into a state of flow are 500% more productive. So instead of measuring how many hours you work, measure how much time you were able to get into flow. I'm sure you're familiar with Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule, trying to figure out what you can cut out of your hours in order to accomplish 80% of the output. I work on that very hard because as a startup, I have obviously a long to-do list, and simplifying, cutting out. Using technology to delegate, delete, delegate, and automate. And putting your mind and body before your business. Your mind and body is the most critical asset that you have. So instead of sacrificing it, which we do every single day, because we're rushing, because we want to get our deadline done, because we want to finish the project. This is why I created this Unhustle morning, and I'll have Danny or Sadie send you the link for that. But it's basically a set of morning rituals that I take. It takes me 20 to 30 minutes every morning, 30 minutes. Some mornings, it takes me an hour and a half. I take as much or as little as I need to make sure that my mind and body are at top level so I can work in a very deep, focused flow state. If I don't feel good, if I wake up and I have brain fog, or if I'm fuzzy, or I'm not clear, or I'm not happy, I would do whatever it takes from these morning rituals to anything from meditation, mindfulness, some kind of exercise, some mindful movement. I will do anything and everything, journaling, to make sure I'm awake, alive, with enough energy to hit my day going. So with that, let's open it to questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Milena. This was, I think you are a woman in data, because the way you started off with so many numbers and easily presented them, I mean, you really know how to tell a story with numbers and data. So you have officially been accepted by the community and the tribe. You were speaking our language there. And really, like, some of those just hit me by alarm, just how many people are lonely and unhealthy. I think you said fat, tired, and sick, and just really what we've been taught is such a lie based upon, you know, the data and the research, right? And, you know, knowing that everyone here is a data person, like, we trust those facts to you know, make better decisions for our lives. And so I hope that everyone here can, you know, take those facts and now use it to make a better decision for their own life. So we do have some questions coming in. One of them, it says, I would love to implement some of these practices, but I'm early on in my career and my team is a hyper-working team. I feel this one. I want to put my mind and body in front of my work, but I also feel social pressure to not. Any recommendations on how to navigate this situation?
That's a great question. And it's going to be very, I'm not saying it's easy, but at the end of the day, your mind and your body is your business. It's what you have. It's the only thing you have. And your team can wait. You have to prioritize yourself. You have to put yourself on that priority list, on your to-do list. And if you can if you don't have time, I mean, the easiest thing for me is to like, get up half an hour earlier so you have a little bit of time for yourself, but then you're sacrificing your sleep, right? So it's very tricky. So then you have to go to bed earlier, which I know it's hard to do, but that's what I determined was my solution. I basically go to bed at 9 so I can wait. I don't wake up with an alarm. I wake up when my body tells me I'm ready to wake up. And so I don't understand how your team, I need a follow-up question. How is your team not allowing you what to do by yourself when you're working from home? Because I have nothing against going full on with the team throughout the day and being there for your team, but your morning is your morning and your evening is your evening. And I think it's just a question of, it's a mental thing, right? It's like knowing when to turn off the computer, knowing when to shut it down, and knowing when to say, this is my time and everything else can wait. And I've got, it's not easy. It's not easy because like I had a project today, and it wasn't this project, but it was a different project, and it comes down to priorities, right? And I woke up this morning and I said, I have 2 very important projects that I need to get done. My Unhustle morning comes first. I come first before everything else. It's kind of selfish, but selfish is not selfish. It's essential. You're taking care of yourself. Sadie, I know you probably can answer that question too.
Yeah, so just because I struggle with it as well, right? I've also had people when even if you're not early on in your career, when you're switching jobs too, wanting to make a good impression, fit in, afraid you're going to be left out. One little tip I saw someone do, which I really liked, they put in their email signature, these are my working hours. And it wasn't too odd. They were like 7:30 to 4:30, right? And they said, I will be responding to emails after that. And so they kind of just, it was such a like subtle way, and they did it so beautifully, I felt like, of just like saying, hey, I'm putting my boundaries out there. And so I think if I struggle with being online all the time and worried about not responding, I've had to have conversations with my boss and my team to say, these are my working hours. If there is not that expectation of me, I can go look for a different job, right? Because again, as Milena said, I come first, and taking care of myself comes first. And it's amazing what happens. Like, you're showing leadership, as Milena talked about, right? Even if you're not in a leadership position, by taking that stance, you're showing leadership, and then your work productivity, as we've seen by the data and the facts, is probably going to be so much better than everybody else. They won't have any room to talk negatively about you anyways. So.
I remember spending time in the hospital in my white gown, like still tweeting and still sending emails. And I still see, and it makes me sad because I still see Instagrams from young women who burn out and have anxiety attacks or panic attacks and end up a week in a hospital, and the doctors basically say to them, you're too stressed out, go home. So what would that be worth to your team if you end up in that situation? And it's real. It happens every time. It happens all the time.
So I have a follow-up question for you. One, these are all fantastic recommendations at the end. What if, I start implementing less social media, taking more time for myself, but I need somebody to help stay accountable, or I need some extra support, right? You talked about finding your values. Do you work with people one-on-one? What's kind of, I saw you did the retreat in Tahoe. That looks amazing, but if that's not accessible to everybody, kind of what's some ways to like start to dive deeper into this?
Sure. Yeah. So we have the Unhustle Morning online course, right? That's like a quick 7-day course. It only takes 15-20 minutes. I think Danny just took it 15-20 minutes a day to run through like the 7 modules. So you have these practices for the rest of your life. I work with people one-on-one. I do one-on-one coaching with people. And then I have an online membership program in which we get together for about 15 minutes a week. And I just give people like one quick actionable item and cut them loose. And it's honestly 5 to 10 minute talk. And then they go on their ways and just implement that. Because I realized Unhustle is such a it's a lifestyle change, you know, and it's a business life, how your business fits with your lifestyle. And I didn't even go into, you know, connecting with your purpose and how we've changed our life. And I know that's not accessible to a lot of people. So instead of bombarding you with this huge amount of information, I figured I would just take like one simple thing and say, okay, do this week. And it was funny because I worked with a guy from Germany, and Hustle is like international like you. And this guy from Germany, he's a writer. And he said, he had a social media addiction problem. He's like, I have a hard time with Twitter. I can't step aside from Twitter. So his task was to take Twitter off his phone and just keep it on his desktop. And he came back within a week and he said, oh my God, I got at least an hour a day in my time. And then I have so much more clarity. I have so much more focus. I can actually write. And it's such a simple thing. And I think if you have the discipline, especially when it comes to social media, if you have the discipline to know when to stop scrolling and when to disconnect, it's not a big deal to have it on your phone. I'm not gonna like make you take all your social media off, because it's our connection, right? We like our friends, we like to see. It's like, it's a relaxing time, it's fun, I love it. But as long as you have awareness, I think the awareness is the big piece. And I think all these mindfulness practices, that's what they taught me, is how to have that awareness, the internal awareness, how to check in with yourself to find out what you need, how to have that awareness of like, what are you doing? Is this a distraction or is it work? And so as long as you have that awareness within you, then social media is beautiful. I've met with so many people like yourself through it. So
yeah, so we have another question from Heather Rodriguez. Thanks, Heather. What is your advice for those that are in an organization where hustle is normal? How can an individual start to influence more of an unhustle environment, even just starting with a small team?
I love this question. I need to come present to your organization and explain to them why hustle is not normal.
I'm sure you'd be down for that.
But in terms of unhustling, right, be the change you want to see. One is, yeah, she's going, yes. I'd love to. It starts with you, right? And it's tough because when everybody around you is hustle, 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 and when you have hustle porn stars telling you that this is the thing to do, and like Sadie said, it's a lie. It's an absolute lie. I'm writing the book, the Unhustle book right now, which is where I put a lot of this research for this presentation. It's a lie. It's probably a Western culture thing. You know, there are words in other cultures that for death by overwork. Japan is not the only one. It's in South Korea. It's in China. Education is, I'd say, is where you can start. It's just showing and maybe follow Unhustle, and I share articles that are alongside the Unhustle mindset, and you can just show people the articles, the research, the science that is not just coming from me, but from all these other companies that are performing better, crushing it with working less hours. And it's not just the less hours. It's like taking care of your well-being, taking care of your health, especially right now. I mean, if somebody doesn't believe right now that taking care of your health is critical for your employees and for your productivity, I don't know when we'll believe in it. So there's a lot of research, there's a lot of science. Just start researching and start presenting that to your team. Maybe you won't be perceived really well at the beginning, because a lot of startup founders are like, let's crush it, let's put in 80-hour week. It's just not sustainable. You know, it's not sustainable. And last case scenario, just quit and find a new job.
Yeah, talking about leading by example, I will say I just took 2 days off, the last 2 days, for what I called, I just needed a mental health break. And I used my sick time, like mental health is a health thing. And I was feeling like, I need some time to reconnect. And so I took that time. But we have more questions coming in, which is fantastic. One from Justine: can you speak a little to whether you see a relationship between unhustling and privilege? In some sense, in some sense, it seems like a luxury to be able to set these boundaries, and not everyone is in a position to push back on their supervisors, colleagues, etc., for financial or other reasons that aren't as simple as setting these boundaries.
You know, I get that a little bit. It sounds like hustle is a privilege. Now, this is exactly why I told you I come from Bulgaria. And I'm used to not having any food in the fridge from that perspective. And I have seen my mom die at an early stage from ovarian cancer because she decided not to separate, work from life. And she wanted to retire, but it was always, I'll work more, I'll work more, I'll work more. One day I'll retire. And hustle is not a privilege, it's a right. It's a right. It's your right to take care of yourself. It's your right to set these boundaries. It's your right to have time for yourself. We're born with that right, and it's part of it is capitalistic mentality, and part of it's unreasonable expectations from supervisors. I used to be one of them. I used to expect my employees to work all the time. I used to give my clients get shit done mugs. So it's and I've gone a long way since then. And it's tough, but I wouldn't say it's a privilege. I would say it's a right. Now, if you're working, there's a small definition here, a small difference I wanna make sure I explain. Since I live in Mexico for 4 months out of the year, I see, and people in Mexico work very long hours. For one, they work 6 days a week, and 2, they work like 12-hour days. You know what they do on a Sunday though? It's family day. And they barbecue and hang out with their families and drink beer and dance, and it's their time off. And I think in the States, we've completely forgotten how to have one day off, just one day off. So if you're working 3 hours, if you're working 3 jobs to just make ends meet, right? If you're like just going from a shift to another job, that's a different situation, right? In that case, I would say figure out what you need to do to elevate your skill set, so you don't have to work 3 hours. I mean, thanks to technology, information is free. You can learn everything online right now. It's just gonna take a little bit of time. But maybe you need to start a business and not work three jobs. But we always have, just remember this, we always have choices. We always have choices. I've been reading Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And it happens, in the Nazi camps. And if you want a perspective shift right now, go and read that book, because even in this horrible situation he was in, he said the last of the human freedoms is how you show up. What's the attitude that you show up each day? So we have choices, and you can make these choices. Just be gentle and be kind to yourself, because it's your right.
Yeah, I love that you brought up that book. I actually started reading that book in March when when lockdown happened. And I was like, I need to be mentally strong. And I was like, if he could do this, it gave me so much encouragement of like, okay, if he could stand in a concentration camp, I can stay at home. I got some choices here I can make. So we'll wrap it up with one final question. Thank you everybody for all the questions. This is from Monica. How to introduce unhustling to your family who's overworking and unhappy with their job?
I love you guys' questions. These are great. Speaking of questions, I got a question for the group too, but let me answer this, and then I have a question for everybody as well. How to introduce unhustling to your family who's overworking, unhappy with their job? How about figuring out what the family likes to do as a family unit, and committing to doing that once a week, whether that's going hiking somewhere for a couple of hours, which is known in Japan as forest medicine, forest bathing. So like I live in Lake Tahoe, so I have a lot of trees around me, but if you can go somewhere where there's a lot of trees, you would it will help you decrease your stress level. It will help you increase your creativity. It will make you happier. It will make you calmer. You'll sleep better. So if you can go somewhere for a hike for 2 hours with the family once a week, they're gonna be happier, and perhaps they'll start seeing how this overworking thing is not really, are we born to live or born to work, right? Born to live. So so I think that would be a first step. Just figure out what you want to do. It may not be hiking. It may be putting a puzzle together, or painting, or paintball war, whatever it is. Just do something together so you can connect and have that relationship. That connection that we talked about helps with happiness. And maybe explain to them how valuable they are to be present while they're doing it, as opposed to thinking about work, which we're very guilty of. So my question to everybody is, so I hope this helps. My question to everybody is, because I see a lot of different questions here. If I'm to create one product for Unhustle to help you right now, what would you say it is? Hi, Brita. I didn't know you jumped in. I have a friend that jumped on here. Yay!
So you want them to answer that in the chat?
Sure, yeah, shoot. Is it an online course? Is it coaching? Is it PDF? Is it blog post? Is it writing the book? Is it a podcast? Because there is the Unhustle podcast.
To their teams and family, right? What is the thing that would help you guys the most?
Is it to talk to you? Yeah. What would you like to see from Unhustle? That's gonna, that you in your current situation is like, oh, that really, I can really do this.
Yeah, well, people are putting their answers. I'm going to put in, there is one that was just a quick question. What was the name of your book? Or when is the book coming out? I had a call with you the day you finished writing it, or at least the draft. So I think it's still in draft form, but. You
were the first one that I didn't even tell my husband. I was like, Sadie, I just finished my book. Well, guess what? I'm back to the introduction right now. So I'm doing some editing, rewriting, and hope to have it finished in 90 days. How's that for a deadline? And the name's gonna be Unhustle, or some variation of that, but there's gonna be Unhustle in it.
And I'm sure we will send it out. We have, some of our favorite reads that we send out in our newsletter. So we'll be sure to stay in touch, and that when it comes out, to send it out to everybody. Heather says, Unhustle for organizations.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense. Heather, connect with me. I would love to talk with you more too. Yeah, you can just shoot me an email at unhustle.com. Well, it looks like we're at the hour, and thank you so much for all your time and all your great questions, and I really appreciate it. And if you get stuck on this journey, let me know.